And God said, "Let there be
The
light."
Lord says, "Let my people go."
I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
This is the Talkin' Bible podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the final episode of this week's Talkin' Bible podcast. Great to have you with us. I'm finishing up with Ed, and today in this last episode we are doing a bit of a conversation around Luke chapter 12, 1 to 12, and it's also in Matthew chapter 10, verses, I've gone into the wrong spot in my notes. Matthew chapter 10, verses 26 to 33. So there's a few more verses in Luke's gospel. So what we might do is we'll park in that as the context for our conversation.
So can I just say, so people know what we're talking about? Basically, it was Jesus' interaction with the authorities and the crowds, and he was talking about warning against hypocrisy.
Thank you. Thank you for the handover. That was really good.
Yep.
Really important before we jump into it. So Jesus is talking about his relationship to the crowd and the disciples' relationship to the crowd and to the leaders and the authorities, and especially around hypocrisy. So let's just paint a little bit of a picture. Yep. Luke's gospel starts with just explaining Jesus is getting all this notoriety and popularity, and the crowds are gathering because word's getting out there that he's healing and doing miracles and he's this great teacher, and could he be the Messiah? So people are coming from all over the provinces around about the area, Jerusalem and Syria and all over, but probably within 100 kilometers in every direction, really, coming to hang out with Jesus. And it says there's so many of them, they're starting to trample on each other. The picture of how busy it is. They're all wanting to see Jesus and get a look at this Messiah man. And also, too, the religious crowd, the religious leaders, the Pharisees and the establishment, who are used to having all the focus on them.
Yes.
Used to being the ones who get the fancy seats at the synagogue and get all the popularity and have people walk through, and when they walk through the market say, "Greetings, Rabbi," and all this sort of stuff. They're used to all the notoriety. But a lot of these people who once followed them have toddled off to Jesus. So you can imagine how they were feeling. They were feeling threatened. They were feeling missing out. There would have been a mixture of selfish reasons in there, and also reasons they were concerned that this could start a riot, and that could mean the Romans would shut the whole thing down, because we don't want riots, we don't want gatherings of crowds. So there's a mixture of selfish reasons in there and semi-selfish reasons. We'll go with that. So what Jesus, in this story, what Jesus does is he starts to teach. It says first his disciples, but what he's doing, I kind of picture him pulling the disciples aside and saying, he says this, "Hey, guys, come over here. Beware of the yeast of the Pharisees, their hypocrisy." And I kind of imagine Jesus is saying it loud enough that they can hear it. I sort of imagine, because then he's deliberately trying to offset them, because these are the ones who are supposed to be God's representatives. These are the ones who are supposed to have it all together. And Jesus is saying they're actually hypocrites. And be aware of that. And then he goes on and says, because all the hypocrisy, all the hiddenness, because hypocrisy means you're not a what you. Sorry,
that's right. Yeah, I had a Cambridge version of what hypocrisy was, and it says a situation in which someone pretends to believe something that they do not really believe, or that is the opposite to what they say or do. Yeah, and that was pretty much with the Pharisees.
That's what they did. Yeah, they were living a duplicitous life. What you see is what you get, people. Yeah. So what they appeared to be in public, appeared all gracious and flamboyant, but really what they were doing was they were craving it all for themselves. Yeah. So the word hypocrite, we get the word hypocrite. The Greek word is hypokritos, I think, or something like that. Yep. And it's actually the mask that it's the mask you see in ancient Greek plays. They put over their face. Yeah. So they would represent different characters. That's how they did it. Yeah. And so basically that's where it came from. You're putting a mask on. You're pretending to be somebody you're not. That's where we say that's what a hypocrite is. A person who's pretending to be someone they're not. Yeah. And that's what Jesus is rebuking these guys for. He's saying this yeast, and I love the word he uses, yeast there. Yeah. Because that's
because it festers. It builds up.
It builds up. It grows. It spreads through.
It spreads through. Yeah.
So what he's saying is this hypocrisy. If you're not careful,
it's going to get out of control.
It'll get on you too. Yeah. It'll grow up and it'll fester through things. So it infects everything. So hypocrisy can do that. If you're Jesus is saying, be on the guard against serving a hypocritical leader, because if you do, it'll get on you. You'll become a hypocrite too, and then it festers and gets worse. And he's saying, hey, that might happen for a time, but Jesus says in the end, the time is coming when everything that's hidden will be brought out into the open.
And then that really, then that finger, instead of pointing out there,
it starts to point in. Yes.
And that's
so true. And I think that's kind of what you were saying to me, is where where this spoke to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is where it spoke to me. Is this, because we can be so afraid of people and what they say and what they do to us, and basically, Jesus, God is not saying, it tells us not to be afraid of evil people, because it says, because your sin. So, for example, with your own sin, do not conceal to your God what you try to hide from Him, because at the end of time, all will be brought to the light and open to God. So really, what you should be doing is humbling yourself and going, I'm this and I'm that, is that you really should be saying, I need to confess my sins. I've slipped up in front of you, Lord, and I ask for forgiveness before you judge me. I want to be able to judge myself first, come to you humbly, and then move on in a better light with you and other people.
So good.
So that's what I sort of caught on
because
from that.
in the end, it'll come out anyway.
In the end,
and I would rather it come out now and have God's grace on it than come out on a giant movie screen behind me where everyone sees everything I've done.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm embarrassed.
And then Jesus can go, stand up for it and go, hang on a second, he did all that, but every time he came to me with a right heart.
Yeah, that's right.
And he wanted to change.
And that's the opposite of hypocrisy. I would say, it's transparency, which is the opposite of, if you're putting a mask up so that people can't see the real you, drop the mask is transparency. We're doing a series later in the year, it'll be after this, I think. Yes, it'll be after this series that we're in now. Towards the end of the year, we're calling it Unmasked.
Right. Yeah.
And it is literally about that. Let's drop the masks and be real people. Let's be transparent with one another. Let's not judge one another. Let's support one another's transparency, because that's the way to live true, healthy lives, is to have each other's back.
Yep.
Not be out there with a knife in the back of someone, but actually have each other's back.
Yeah.
Stand back to back rather than stand behind with a knife.
Yeah. Yeah, and I added that too, because people always, you go to the dentist and the dentist hurts you and you think you're dying, honestly. But it says, I had another thought too, because I'm going, sometimes you're going, I don't want to die a horrible death. I don't want to be crucified. I don't want to be in a car accident and die. All these things that can happen. And you go, don't be afraid of people or circumstances that hurt your body, because God is more interested in your soul. So your body's important, but he's in your soul. So be more afraid of the one that can destroy not only your body, but that can destroy your soul.
So it's about priorities.
It's about priorities, because Jesus will be the one that will say, good and faithful servant, or I'm sorry, mate, you're off, I don't know, whatever hell looks like. But it says, the Son is the mediator, and he can take you to hell or spare you.
Yeah, and I think this is where that's a really good point. And people often think, when it says, don't be afraid of the one who don't be afraid of martyrdom. Don't be afraid of being burned at the stake. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've heard, the ancient historians tell us stories of people who went to their martyrdom courageously. Yeah. And I look at myself and think I'd be scared stiff, or worse language than I'll put on the podcast about that. I would be like that. And part of me wrestles with that and go, well, would that make me less of a Christian, that I somehow wasn't marching to my death in faith?
Yeah.
I have to think that, no, I'm an ordinary person. Yeah. I think fear is normal. Fear is natural. It's actually something that's not necessarily always bad to have fear. It's fear that keeps us from, running on the road, those sorts of things. So fear is not all bad, but there must be a sense in which, because Jesus says, don't fear that, but fear God who can do this. Maybe it's more a sense of, if I prioritize God's judgment and God's grace as well, somehow in that moment when these martyrs went to their death, they were given some sense of supernatural grace that transcended physical fear. So they went triumphantly. Because I've always been a person who, as a younger person who was fearful of death. I wrestle with that. Even as a Christian, I wrestle with a lot of fear of death. I lost my... I remember coming home at the age of 7 and getting home from a birthday party, and my mum and dad telling me that my grandfather had died. They'd had a phone call, my grandfather had died, and then not long after that, there's a family friend who died in a tow truck accident, and I lived right through my young years, sort of early teens, late pre-teens and early teens, with this fear that every time the phone would ring, someone had died. And obviously it wasn't the case, but I used to live with this crippling fear, and I was genuinely afraid of death. I remember just back in 2018 with my brother, and he was passing away, and I remember sitting by his bed about a week before he died, and I remember this divine, and this will be strange to some people, and everyone else will go, yeah, I get it, but I remember this divine sense of, I guess it's peace came over me that goes, you know what, when my time comes, I think I'll be all right. It was so significant. Like suddenly the fear of death seemed to drop away. And I went, if that was me in that bed, in a strange kind of way, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I was fearful of it. And it was almost at that point I was able to go, God, that's closer to being with the Lord. That's closer to being with the Lord. So somehow that transcended the fear of the pain and the fear of the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Jesus is saying here.
Yeah, because I've watched my parents die, take their last breaths. So my father was in huge agony, he had bone cancer. And he was in absolute agony. But how he prepared to death, it was like, when just before the candle burns out, it shines bright. Well, that was him. We had a day where he was in absolute agony, and then suddenly he was joyful, he was happy, and towards the end of it, in his life, he was always, when he went to work, he caught a train. And that night before he died, he was catching the train, he was preparing himself. It was the weirdest thing that he was done, and I'm good, I'm ready to go. I've had a great day with my family, we've laughed, we've joked. And that night, he died. It was like he knew what was coming.
He came to some sense of closure.
A sense of closure.
Yep.
And we always prompted him to go, don't worry about where I am with the Lord. I've got my own concept. So we tried to push in, but he pushed back.
Yep.
But just to see that was interesting.
Wow, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, and my mum was the same. She never feared. She was could be in a good place because she did affirm that she was a Christ follower and stuff like that. And again, she was calm about it. And I really hope that I have that same attitude.
It's inspirational, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's right, because everything inside me wrestles with that until I get to that moment. I think there must be a grace available for people. And I've sat with lots of people as a pastor who are in the final days of their life, and I've seen that peace that seems to come that you can't really define it. It's like there's just a peace in the room, and they seem at peace. And I think that's the point, is that somehow they've transferred their fear of what Jesus is saying here across onto a greater respect.
They transcend somewhere.
Yes.
I don't know what it is.
That's right. It's bigger than that.
Yep.
And that's what Jesus is probably telling them. Hey, there's going to come times when life isn't going to be easy for you, whether that's your own death or the death of a loved one or whatever. But if in this story you can recognize that all of that hypocrisy, all of that fake stuff is all going to come out in the open, just trust him and stay true to him.
Yeah.
And you'll be okay. Like, it's going to be all right in the long run.
And that's why you've got to come to get away from the Pharisees. They're telling you,
they're telling you the wrong thing.
The wrong things, yeah.
Don't settle for appearances.
Yeah.
You've got to pursue integrity in your own world, definitely. Yeah. Got anything else in your notes?
Well, I don't know where I come up with this, but it talks about sparrows, but I won't go. I think we've covered everything.
Go on the sparrows. Yeah, go with that. Talking about the Lord.
Where God, this is where you want to be. This is you're going. It was talked about the sparrows where even the Lord knows. I think was it when they. I can't remember.
Yes, well, he says in the Sermon on the Mount, even when they die, Sermon on the Mount says, don't worry about what you will eat or what you will drink or what you will wear.
That sort of stuff. Yeah, but even after death, he talks about. Where is that? That God values and cares for us, even though we die amongst a million or billion other people. It's like there's millions of birds.
Yes.
And we will die, we will fall, and we are not to worry. He knows us because he made us. He is like the potter who made the jar or the urn with loving and care, and he made us with loving and care as well.
Amen.
And he will remember us because he crafted us.
Great note to finish on.
That's what
so good. Focus on him, and he cares about us, and then all of the other things will seemingly not be as important or not be as all-consuming as they would be.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed.
That's it.
Great week. Well done. Give you a clap. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you on the next episode. See you then.